This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Welcome to this exploration of one of humanity's darkest and most enduring taboos, cannibalism. In this article, we will journey through time and across cultures to unravel the complex and often unsettling story of humans consuming other humans. Using accessible language, we'll delve into the archaeological evidence, cultural practices, and psychological motivations behind this act, separating fact from fiction and challenging our preconceived notions. Prepare to be both fascinated and disturbed as we uncover the whispers of cannibalism from the deep past. We'll examine the earliest archaeological evidence, tracing the practice back through prehistory and exploring its presence among various hominin groups, including our distant ancestors and Neanderthals. We'll investigate the different forms cannibalism took, from the seemingly methodical butchering practices at some sites to the more frenzied and less organized evidence found at others. We'll also consider the challenging question of interpreting these ancient remains and the difficulties in distinguishing between nutritional and ritualistic cannibalism. From the archaeological record, we'll move into the realm of ritual and belief. We'll explore how different cultures throughout history have incorporated the consumption of human flesh into their spiritual and ceremonial practices. We'll examine the diverse motivations behind these rituals, from expressions of love and grief to acts of warfare, intimidation, and spiritual purification. Prepare to confront some unsettling practices, but also to gain a deeper understanding of the complex interplay of belief and behavior that shapes human societies. Beyond the realms of prehistory and ritual, we'll delve into the psychological and sociological factors that can drive cannibalism. We'll explore how it can be used as a chilling assertion of dominance, a gruesome spectacle of power, or even a tool for maintaining social order within a community. We'll examine the stark contrast between cannibalism as an act of aggression towards outsiders and as a form of incorporation and remembrance within a group. We'll also look at the horrific practice of using cannibalism as a form of torture and social control. The discussion will then turn to the harrowing realities of survival cannibalism, where the consumption of human flesh becomes a last resort in the face of starvation. We'll examine famous cases like the Donner Party and the survivors of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, exploring the ethical dilemmas and psychological toll of this desperate choice. We'll also examine historical examples of survival cannibalism at sea and the agonizing custom of the sea, as well as the impact of these events on our understanding of human behavior under extreme duress. We'll also investigate a unique and tragic case of ritualistic cannibalism among the Fore people of Papua New Guinea and the devastating consequences of their practice. We'll explore the link between their ritual of consuming deceased relatives and the spread of Kuru, a fatal prion disease, and examine the scientific investigation that ultimately unraveled this medical mystery. Finally, we'll confront the unsettling reality that cannibalism persists in the modern world, albeit in isolated and often disturbing forms. We'll examine modern cases linked to mental illness, cultural beliefs, and purported medicinal purposes, exploring the legal and ethical challenges these instances present. We'll also touch upon the debate surrounding cultural relativism and the difficulties in applying universal moral judgments to culturally specific practices. By the end of this article, you will have a deeper understanding of the complex history, diverse motivations, and enduring presence of cannibalism in human societies. You will have explored the archaeological evidence, cultural practices, and psychological factors that have shaped this taboo act, and you will have confronted some of the darkest aspects of human nature. Prepare to have your assumptions challenged, your understanding broadened, and your perspective on humanity forever altered. Chapter 1. Whispers from the Deep Past. The act of humans consuming other humans, cannibalism, is a concept so unsettling that it seems to belong solely to the realm of horror fiction. Yet, the whispers of this practice echo not from the pages of a gruesome novel, but from the depths of prehistory, challenging our understanding of early human behavior and forcing us to confront a disturbing truth about our past. The earliest evidence, a tibia unearthed in Kenya and dated to an astonishing 1.45 million years ago, bears the unmistakable signature of stone tools. These markings, distinct from the gnawing of carnivores or the damage inflicted by natural processes, suggest that even our distant hominin ancestors may have engaged in consuming their own kind. This single bone, a silent testament to an act both ancient and unsettling, opens a window into a world where the line between predator and prey, between the hunter and the hunted, blurred within the very fabric of the human family. This discovery, however, is not an isolated incident. Across Europe, archaeological sites have yielded further evidence, painting a progressively more complex and disturbing picture of prehistoric cannibalism. At Gran Dolina, in the Atapuerca Mountains of Spain, the fragmented remains of at least 6 Homo antecessor individuals tell a chilling tale. Dating back nearly 1 million years, these bones, intermingled with the butchered remains of other animals like deer, rhinos, and horses, bear the stark evidence of cannibalistic practices. Cut marks cluster around muscle attachments, indicating systematic defleshing, while broken bones reveal the extraction of marrow, a rich source of nutrients. The presence of human tooth marks on some of the bones provides further, undeniable proof of consumption. What's more, the proportion of human remains relative to other animal bones suggests that Homo antecessor consumed their own kind far more frequently than would be expected based on their relative abundance in the environment. This raises the intriguing question: were these acts driven by desperation and hunger, or did they serve a different, perhaps more sinister, purpose? Traveling forward in time, the Moulin-Guercy Neanderthal site in France offers another glimpse into the world of prehistoric cannibalism. Here, the remains of 6 Neanderthals, dating back approximately 100,000 years, display similar patterns of cut marks and bone breakage as seen at Gran Dolina. The deliberate and methodical nature of the bone processing, mirroring the treatment of deer and other prey animals found at the site, strongly suggests that these Neanderthals were not simply scavenging the remains of their dead, but actively butchering them for consumption. This evidence adds another layer to the emerging narrative of cannibalism, indicating that the practice was not limited to a single species or a specific time period, but rather spanned across different hominin groups and hundreds of thousands of years. Further north, in the El Sidrón cave in Spain, a different story unfolds. The remains of 12 Neanderthals, dating back approximately 49,000 years, bear the gruesome marks of cannibalism. However, unlike at Moulin-Guercy, the bones at El Sidrón show signs of being broken open using hammerstones and anvils, suggesting a more frenzied and less methodical approach to butchering. The reasons for this difference remain a subject of ongoing research, but it highlights the diversity of cannibalistic practices among prehistoric hominins. Were these acts of violence driven by intergroup conflict, resource scarcity, or some other unknown factor? The bones themselves remain stubbornly silent, leaving us to piece together the fragments of a story lost to time. Across the English Channel, Gough's Cave in Somerset, England, provides yet another perspective on prehistoric cannibalism. Here, the remains of at least 5 individuals, dating back roughly 14,700 years, reveal a complex interplay of cannibalistic practices and what may be early forms of ritualistic behavior. While many bones display the characteristic cut marks and breaks associated with nutritional cannibalism, others show signs of modification into tools and artifacts. Most notably, several human skulls have been carefully shaped into cups, raising the possibility that these ancient people were not simply consuming their dead, but also using their remains in symbolic or ceremonial practices. This discovery adds a new dimension to the understanding of prehistoric cannibalism, suggesting that the motivations behind these acts may have extended beyond mere survival. The Magdalenian and Epigravidian cultures, which coexisted in Europe during the late Upper Paleolithic period, around 23,000 to 14,000 years ago, offer a fascinating comparison in funerary practices. While both cultures left behind evidence of cannibalism, the Magdalenian sites, primarily located in northwestern Europe, reveal a greater emphasis on the processing and modification of human remains, including the creation of skull cups and engraved bones. In contrast, the Epigravidian sites, concentrated in southern and eastern Europe, show a higher frequency of burials, suggesting a different approach to the treatment of the dead. This cultural divergence raises the question: did these contrasting practices reflect fundamentally different beliefs about death and the afterlife, or were they simply responses to varying environmental and social pressures? One crucial aspect of understanding prehistoric cannibalism is comparing the nutritional value of humans to other prey animals available to early hominins. Studies have shown that while humans offer a moderate source of calories and nutrients, they pale in comparison to larger animals like mammoths, bison, and horses. This disparity raises a critical question. If early hominins were driven solely by nutritional needs, why would they risk the dangers of hunting and consuming their own kind, who were capable of fighting back and seeking revenge, when more calorically rewarding prey was available? This discrepancy hints that the motivations behind cannibalism may have been far more complex than simple hunger, encompassing social, cultural, and perhaps even spiritual dimensions. Interpreting cannibalism in the archaeological record presents numerous challenges. Distinguishing between nutritional and ritualistic practices can be difficult, as the same cut marks and bone breakage patterns can result from both activities. Furthermore, determining the exact reasons behind these behaviors is often impossible, as the motivations of prehistoric hominins are lost to time. Were these acts of desperation, aggression, ritual, or some combination of factors? The evidence rarely provides definitive answers, leaving us to grapple with the ambiguity and complexity of the past. Despite these challenges, the whispers of cannibalism from the deep past continue to resonate, forcing us to confront the darker aspects of human history and to question our assumptions about the nature of our ancestors. These ancient bones, bearing the silent scars of an unsettling practice, serve as a stark reminder of the long and often brutal journey that has shaped our species. Chapter 2: The Hungry Dead. Ritualistic cannibalism, the consumption of human flesh within a spiritual or ceremonial context, unveils a multifaceted and often disturbing chapter in the human story. Far from the simplistic portrayal of savage hunger, these practices reveal a complex interplay of reverence, grief, spiritual beliefs, social status, and intimidation. Across cultures and throughout history, the act of consuming human flesh could hold profound symbolic meaning, inextricably woven into the fabric of society and belief. Among the four people of Papua New Guinea, the ritual of transumption involved consuming deceased relatives, particularly by women and children. This act, far from being an expression of aggression or disrespect, was deeply rooted in love and grief. The four believed that by consuming the flesh of their loved ones, they were incorporating their spirit and strength, ensuring their continued presence within the community. Tragically, this practice led to the spread of Kuru, a fatal prion disease transmitted through the consumption of infected brain tissue. The Kuru epidemic, which peaked in the 1950s, decimated four communities, particularly affecting women and children, and serves as a stark reminder of the unintended consequences of even the most well-intentioned cultural practices. The island Caribs of the Lesser Antilles, whose name ironically became synonymous with cannibalism, also had a long-standing reputation for consuming human flesh. While some controversy surrounds the extent and nature of Carib cannibalism, historical accounts from the 17th century document their practices and beliefs. Often associated with warfare, Carib cannibalism may have involved the consumption of enemies, potentially as a way to absorb their strength or to intimidate rivals. The specifics of their rituals and ceremonies, however, remain shrouded in some degree of uncertainty. In Fiji, once known as the Cannibal Isles, cannibalism was a well-documented practice. Like the Caribs, Fijian cannibalism was often linked to warfare and intergroup conflict. The consumption of enemies was not simply a matter of sustenance, but a symbolic act of dominance and power. Elaborate rituals and ceremonies surrounded these practices, often involving the display and consumption of body parts as trophies. The Maori people of New Zealand also practiced cannibalism, although the motivations and contexts varied. In some cases, it was associated with warfare, while in others, it may have been part of funerary rites or a way to honor a respected enemy. The Maori believed that consuming parts of a person could transfer their mana, or spiritual power, to the eater. This practice, like many other forms of ritualistic cannibalism, highlights the complex relationship between reverence and revulsion, demonstrating how the same act could hold both positive and negative connotations within a specific cultural context. Endocannibalism, the consumption of relatives, took diverse forms across cultures. For some, like the four, it was an expression of love and grief, a way to maintain a connection with the deceased. The preparation and consumption of body parts varied depending on the specific culture and the relationship to the deceased. In some cases, certain organs or body parts were believed to hold particular significance, such as the heart or the brain. The consumption of these parts was often accompanied by specific rituals and ceremonies designed to facilitate the transfer of the deceased spirit or positive traits to the living. Sacrificial cannibalism, where human victims were offered to deities, reached its apex in the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs believed that the sun god Huitzilopochtli required a constant supply of human hearts and blood to maintain cosmic balance and prevent the world from being plunged into darkness. Elaborate ceremonies and rituals accompanied these sacrifices, often performed atop towering temples. The victim's heart was removed with an obsidian blade and offered to the sun god, while their body was sometimes consumed by noblemen or other distinguished members of society. This practice, while undeniably brutal, held profound spiritual significance for the Aztecs, reflecting their worldview and their understanding of their place within the cosmos. Furthermore, the public nature of these sacrifices served as a powerful tool of intimidation, reinforcing Aztec dominance and control over their vast empire. The Korowai, a remote tribe in Indonesian New Guinea, practiced a unique form of ritualistic cannibalism involving the consumption of kakua, or male witches. The Korowai believed that kakua cause illness and misfortune through sorcery, and consuming their flesh is seen as a way to eliminate these perceived threats within the community. This practice reflects the Korowai's understanding of the spiritual world and their methods for dealing with perceived dangers. While the act of consuming human flesh may seem abhorrent to outsiders, it holds a specific logic and meaning within the Korowai worldview. These examples, drawn from diverse cultures and historical periods, illustrate the wide range of motivations and cultural contexts behind ritualistic cannibalism. From expressions of love and grief to acts of warfare, intimidation, and spiritual purification, the consumption of human flesh has held a complex and often contradictory place in human societies. While our modern sensibilities may recoil at these practices, understanding their cultural and historical context allows us to glimpse the diverse ways in which humans have made sense of death, the afterlife, and their relationship with the spiritual world. By exploring these practices, we can gain a deeper understanding of the human capacity for both profound love and unimaginable cruelty, for reverence and revulsion, and for the complex interplay of belief and behavior that shapes our shared human story. Chapter 3: Beyond Hunger. Cannibalism isn't always a desperate act driven by the pangs of hunger. More often than not, it's a complex tapestry woven from psychological and sociological threads, a practice imbued with meaning far beyond mere sustenance. It can be a chilling assertion of dominance, a gruesome spectacle of power over vanquished foes, a ritualistic incorporation of the deceased, or even a tool for maintaining social order within a community. The motivations are as diverse as the cultures that have practiced it, revealing cannibalism's multifaceted role in both intergroup conflict and intragroup dynamics. Dominance assertion, the raw display of power through the consumption of another, is a recurring theme in the history of cannibalism. The act of consuming an outsider, known as exocannibalism, can serve as a visceral victory celebration, a symbolic gesture meant to both savor triumph and instill fear in potential rivals. This is vividly illustrated in instances of warfare cannibalism, where the flesh of slain enemies is not just eaten but often ritualized, becoming a macabre trophy of conquest. Historical engravings depict scenes from South America where captured enemies are roasted and consumed, their bodies transformed into a grotesque feast of victory. Even more disturbingly, in some parts of Melanesia and the Congo Basin, the flesh of vanquished foes was not just consumed but commodified, openly sold in markets as a gruesome trade good. The island Caribs of the Lesser Antilles, whose very name became the root of the word cannibal, provide a particularly compelling, albeit controversial, case study. Their reputation as consumers of human flesh, solidified by 17th-century documentation of their legends and traditions, has been a subject of ongoing debate. While some scholars question the accuracy and extent of these accounts, the Caribs' enduring association with cannibalism underscores the power of such narratives to shape perceptions and fuel both fear and fascination. In contrast to the aggressive display of exocannibalism, endocannibalism, the consumption of members of one's own group, often carries a different set of motivations. Rather than dominance, the focus shifts to incorporation, a desire to absorb the deceased's strength, skills, or spiritual essence. This practice, documented in various New Guinea tribes, involved consuming parts of a deceased relative in the belief that their positive traits would be transferred to the living. This act, often embedded within elaborate funerary ceremonies, becomes a form of remembrance, a way to maintain a connection with the departed and to ensure their continued presence within the community. It is an act of mourning and respect, a macabre expression of love and grief, a stark contrast to the brutal display of exocannibalism. The distinction between exocannibalism and endocannibalism, however, is not always clear-cut. The theory that consuming a person's flesh or organs allows the cannibal to absorb their positive characteristics, while prevalent in some cultures, is notably absent in others. Studies of exocannibalism in regions like New Zealand, New Guinea, and the Congo Basin found no evidence of such beliefs, suggesting that the motivations behind consuming outsiders could vary significantly depending on the specific cultural context. Similarly, endocannibalism, while often associated with funerary rites and expressions of affection, could also serve other purposes, such as guiding the souls of the dead into the bodies of living descendants. Cannibalism could also function as a brutal instrument of social control, a way to eliminate perceived threats or enforce conformity within a community. Accusations of witchcraft, for instance, could become a death sentence, with the accused being killed and consumed, their bodies serving as a gruesome warning to others. The Korowai tribe's practice of killing and eating male witches, known as kakua, exemplifies this chilling form of social control. The act of consumption, in this context, is not just about eliminating a threat but also about purifying the community, purging it of malevolent influences. Even more disturbing are the documented cases of forced autocannibalism, where individuals are compelled to consume parts of their own bodies as a form of torture. This horrific practice, a grotesque inversion of endocannibalism, highlights the extreme lengths to which cannibalism can be used as a weapon of control and intimidation. The psychological trauma inflicted by such acts is unimaginable, leaving lasting scars on both the individual and the community. Another dark facet of cannibalism as social control is the practice of infanticide followed by cannibalism, documented among Aboriginal Australians. In these cases, newborns or infants deemed unwanted or unfit to live were killed and then consumed, often by the mother, father, or close relatives. This practice, while deeply disturbing, reflects the harsh realities of survival in certain environments and the difficult choices faced by some communities. It is a stark reminder of the complex interplay of cultural beliefs, environmental pressures, and individual circumstances that can shape human behavior. Medicinal cannibalism, practiced in early modern Europe, offers a starkly different perspective on the consumption of human flesh. Driven by the belief that human body parts held curative powers, Europeans consumed everything from blood and powdered skull to ground-up mummies. This practice, reaching its height in the 17th century, persisted in some areas into the late 19th century. While seemingly at odds with the ritualistic or survival-driven cannibalism of other cultures, medicinal cannibalism underscores the diverse ways in which humans have interacted with the human body, attributing to it both symbolic and practical significance. The case of the Donner Party, stranded in the Sierra Nevada mountains during the winter of 1846 to 1847, provides a chilling example of survival cannibalism. Driven to desperation by starvation, the survivors resorted to consuming the bodies of the dead, a last resort in the face of certain death. This tragic episode, etched into American history, highlights the extreme circumstances that can push humans to breach the ultimate taboo. The Donner Party's story is not just about cannibalism but also about the resilience and desperation of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship. The crash of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 in 1972 offers another harrowing account of survival cannibalism. Stranded in the Andes Mountains for 72 days, the survivors, like the Donner Party, were forced to consume the bodies of their deceased companions to stay alive. Their story, documented in the book and film Alive, captured the world's attention, sparking both horror and admiration for their courage and determination. The survivors' decision to consume human flesh, while deeply disturbing, was ultimately an act of survival, a testament to the human will to live. These diverse examples, spanning cultures, historical periods, and motivations, reveal the profound complexity of cannibalism. It is a practice that defies simple categorization, challenging our understanding of human behavior and forcing us to confront the darkest aspects of our nature. While our modern sensibilities may recoil at the very thought of consuming human flesh, the whispers of cannibalism from the past continue to echo, reminding us of the long and often brutal journey that has shaped our species. Chapter 4: A Taste of Taboo. Survival cannibalism, the consumption of human flesh as a last resort when facing starvation, is a chilling ethical dilemma that forces us to confront the darkest corners of human nature. It's a stark illustration of the desperate choices humans can make under extreme duress, pushing the boundaries of morality and leaving a lasting psychological toll on those involved. The Donner Party, trapped in the Sierra Nevada mountains during the brutal winter of 1846 to 1847, stands as a harrowing example of this agonizing choice. The Donner-Reed Party, a group of American pioneers, set out for California with dreams of a new life. Their journey, however, took a disastrous turn when they became snowbound in the Sierra Nevada. As their supplies dwindled, they first exhausted their food stores, then consumed their oxen and horses, and finally, boiled the bones and hides for any remaining sustenance. Even their beloved dog, Uno, did not escape their desperate hunger. Faced with the agonizing prospect of starvation, the group made the unthinkable decision to consume the bodies of those who had already succumbed to the elements. This descent into cannibalism was not a sudden, crazed act, but a gradual, horrifying process born of desperation and the slow erosion of hope. The psychological impact on the survivors was profound, leaving them with the weight of their actions and the haunting memories of their ordeal. Accounts from rescuers detail the physical and mental deterioration of the survivors, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow, their minds scarred by the trauma they had endured. The Donner Party story, forever etched in American history, has become a cultural touchstone for the horrors of survival cannibalism, a stark reminder of the fragility of human life and the extreme choices we might make when pushed to the brink. Another chilling example of survival cannibalism is the story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. On October 13, 1972, the plane carrying a Uruguayan rugby team and their families crashed in the remote Andes Mountains. Stranded at an altitude of over 11,000 feet, the survivors faced not only freezing temperatures and treacherous terrain but also the immediate horror of death and injury among their companions. Their meager food supplies quickly vanished, forcing them to ration tiny portions of chocolate and wine. As days turned into weeks, the reality of their situation set in. Rescue was unlikely, and starvation was imminent. After agonizing deliberation and facing the certainty of death, they made the unimaginable decision to consume the bodies of their friends and teammates who had perished in the crash or succumbed to the harsh conditions. This act, though born of desperation, was meticulously planned. They carefully preserved the bodies in the snow and ice, ensuring their preservation, and then, with heavy hearts, began the grim task of consuming the flesh and organs of their companions. They rationed their gruesome sustenance, knowing that every bite could mean the difference between life and death. The survivors later described the psychological torment of their decision, the guilt and despair that haunted them even as they knew it was their only means of survival. Their 72-day ordeal became a testament to human resilience and the extraordinary lengths to which people will go to survive, but it also left an indelible mark on their psyches. The history of survival cannibalism at sea is equally harrowing, often involving the agonizing custom of the sea. This once accepted practice involved drawing lots to determine who would be sacrificed to feed the starving survivors of a shipwreck. While this may seem barbaric to modern sensibilities, it was viewed as a necessary evil in a time when rescue at sea was uncertain and prolonged starvation was a common fate for shipwrecked sailors. However, the legal precedent set by the R versus Dudley and Stevens case in 1884 outlawed this practice, effectively ending the custom of the sea. 2 shipwrecked sailors who killed and ate a cabin boy were found guilty of murder, establishing the principle that necessity is no defense to a charge of murder. This legal decision, coupled with the widespread condemnation of the Donner Party incident, shifted public perception of survival cannibalism, transforming it from a grim necessity to a criminal act. The Essex, a whaling ship sunk by a sperm whale in 1820, and the Meduse, a French frigate wrecked off the coast of Africa in 1816, provide further examples of the horrors of survival cannibalism at sea. In both cases, the survivors, adrift in lifeboats with dwindling supplies, resorted to consuming the bodies of their deceased companions. These stories, like those of the Donner Party and Flight 571, highlight the extreme choices humans face when survival is at stake. The Jamestown colony, established in 1607, faced its own starving time during the winter of 1609 to 1610. Archaeological excavations at James Fort unearthed a gruesome secret: evidence of survival cannibalism. The incomplete skull and tibia of a 14-year-old girl, dubbed Jane, revealed the chilling details. Forensic analysis showed clear signs of butchering, including tentative chops to the forehead, forceful blows to the back of the head, and cuts to the jaw, all indicating an inexperienced attempt to access the brain and flesh for consumption. This discovery provided concrete evidence of the desperate measures taken by the colonists during that harsh winter, when nearly 80% of the population perished. The Russian famine of 1921–1922, a catastrophic event that claimed millions of lives, also witnessed instances of survival cannibalism. Driven to the brink by starvation, people resorted to consuming the bodies of the dead, a horrifying testament to the famine's devastating impact. Recorded accounts detail the unspeakable acts committed during this period, painting a grim picture of human desperation and the breakdown of social order. Parents ate their children, neighbors preyed on each other, and the very fabric of society unraveled under the weight of hunger. These stories of survival cannibalism, though diverse in their specific details, share a common thread: the agonizing choices humans make when faced with the ultimate test of survival. They force us to confront the fragility of human morality and the psychological scars left by such extreme acts. The guilt, trauma, and social stigma associated with cannibalism can haunt survivors for years, if not a lifetime. They grapple with the memories of their actions, the weight of their choices, and the struggle to reconcile their desperate acts with their sense of humanity. The psychological impact can manifest in various ways, from post-traumatic stress disorder and depression to social isolation and the inability to form close relationships. These stories, though difficult to confront, offer a profound insight into the human condition, reminding us of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope, even in the face of unimaginable darkness. Chapter 5. The Curse of Kuru. The remote highlands of Papua New Guinea, shrouded in mist and mystery, were home to the Forepeople, a close-knit community whose traditions and beliefs were as intricate as the dense forests that surrounded them. Among their most sacred rituals was transumption, the practice of consuming deceased relatives as an act of love, respect, and remembrance. This ritual, far from being a gruesome spectacle, was deeply embedded in the Four worldview, a way to honor the dead and maintain a spiritual connection with their ancestors. But this sacred practice held a hidden danger, a devastating secret that would unravel the fabric of Four society and leave an enduring legacy of grief and loss. Transumption was not simply an act of consumption. It was a meticulously orchestrated ceremony, a final farewell to the departed. The body of the deceased, carefully washed and prepared, was brought to a designated area where family members gathered to participate in the ritual. The flesh of the deceased was cooked, often with vegetables and herbs, and then shared among the mourners. Certain body parts, believed to hold particular significance, were reserved for specific individuals. The brain, considered the seat of knowledge and wisdom, was often consumed by women and children, as they were seen as the future of the community and the inheritors of the deceased's wisdom. This practice, while seemingly macabre to outsiders, held profound spiritual meaning for the Four. They believed that by consuming the flesh of their loved ones, they were incorporating their spirit and essence, ensuring their continued presence within the community. It was a way to honor the dead, to keep their memory alive, and to maintain a tangible connection with their ancestors. Tragically, this sacred ritual held a hidden danger, a silent killer that would soon wreak havoc on the Forepeople. Kuru, a fatal prion disease, began to emerge within their communities, its insidious nature initially masked by subtle symptoms. The first signs were often a slight tremor, a subtle loss of coordination, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. As the disease progressed, the tremors intensified, the loss of coordination became more pronounced, and those afflicted began to experience difficulty walking and maintaining their balance. Then came the slurred speech, the vacant stares, and the pathologic bursts of laughter that earned Kuru the chilling moniker, laughing sickness. In its final stages, Kuru robbed its victims of their ability to speak, to swallow, to even recognize their loved ones. They lay helpless, their bodies ravaged by uncontrollable tremors, their minds lost in a fog of confusion and despair, until finally, death brought a merciful end to their suffering. The Kuru epidemic swept through 4 communities like a wildfire, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Families watched in horror as their loved ones, particularly women and children, succumbed to the disease's relentless grip. Fear and confusion reigned as the 4 struggled to understand the cause of this mysterious illness. Some attributed it to sorcery, believing that malevolent forces were at work. Others saw it as a punishment from the spirits, a consequence of some unknown transgression. The emotional and social impact of the epidemic was profound. Grief consumed entire villages as families mourned the loss of mothers, daughters, sisters, and children. The social fabric of 4 society began to unravel as the disease disproportionately affected women, the traditional caregivers and keepers of cultural knowledge. The loss of these women had a devastating impact on 4 communities, disrupting their social structures and leaving a void that would be difficult to fill. The mystery of Kuru baffled medical researchers and anthropologists alike. Initial investigations focused on genetic factors, suspecting that the disease was inherited. However, the peculiar pattern of transmission, primarily affecting women and children within certain families, suggested a different cause. Anthropologists, working closely with 4 communities, began to piece together the puzzle. They meticulously documented 4 customs and traditions, paying particular attention to their mortuary practices. The link between Kuru and transumption gradually emerged, a horrifying revelation that challenged the very foundation of 4 culture. The consumption of infected brain tissue, the very act meant to honor and preserve the memory of the deceased, was the source of their suffering. The research process was fraught with challenges. The remote location of 4 communities, the language barrier, and the sensitive nature of the topic required cultural sensitivity and respect. Researchers had to build trust with 4 elders and community members, carefully explaining their work and addressing their concerns. The 4, initially hesitant, gradually came to understand the importance of the research, recognizing that it held the key to ending the Kuru epidemic. Their willingness to share their traditions and beliefs, even those that seemed most unsettling to outsiders, was crucial to unraveling the mystery of Kuru. The discovery of the link between Kuru and cannibalism was a turning point for the 4 people. Faced with the devastating consequences of their sacred ritual, they made the difficult decision to abandon transumption. This was not an easy choice, as it meant relinquishing a practice deeply ingrained in their culture and beliefs. But the 4, recognizing the urgency of the situation, chose to prioritize the health and survival of their community. They worked closely with researchers and government officials to educate their people about the dangers of Kuru and to implement new funerary practices. This transition was not without its challenges, as it required a fundamental shift in their understanding of death and the afterlife. But the 4, with remarkable resilience and adaptability, embraced change, demonstrating their commitment to protecting their community from the curse of Kuru. The Kuru epidemic, while a tragic chapter in the history of the 4 people, also provided invaluable insights into prion diseases. Kuru, along with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, variant CJD, VCJD, and mad cow disease, belongs to a family of rare and fatal neurodegenerative disorders caused by misfolded proteins called prions. These diseases, while distinct in their specific manifestations, share a common mechanism: the accumulation of abnormal prions in the brain, leading to progressive neurological damage and ultimately, death. The study of Kuru, facilitated by the 4 people's courage and cooperation, has contributed significantly to our understanding of these devastating diseases, paving the way for research into potential treatments and preventative measures. The 4 people's experience, though marked by immense suffering, has ultimately left a positive legacy, advancing medical knowledge and offering hope for those affected by prion diseases worldwide. Chapter 6. Cannibalism Today. While cannibalism is largely relegated to the annals of history and the realm of horror fiction, it persists in the modern world in isolated and often disturbing forms. Some instances are linked to mental illness, where individuals engage in the act due to severe psychological disorders or psychosis. Cases like Albert Fish, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Armin Moose illustrate the extreme and aberrant nature of these acts, often accompanied by violence and sexual deviancy. However, the motivations behind modern cannibalism are far more diverse than mental illness alone, encompassing cultural beliefs, social control, and even purported medicinal purposes. These modern instances, while rare, force us to confront the enduring presence of this taboo act in contemporary society and the complex questions it raises about the darkest aspects of human nature. One of the most infamous modern cases is that of Armin Moose, the Rotenburg cannibal. Moose, a German computer scientist, harbored a long-held fantasy of consuming human flesh, a desire rooted in a troubled childhood and a yearning for connection. He meticulously sought a willing victim online, eventually connecting with Bernd Brandes, an executive who expressed a desire for self-annihilation. Their encounter was carefully documented, with Brandes providing repeated, explicit consent to be killed and eaten. Moose fulfilled Brandes's wish, consuming large portions of his body over several months. This case raised profound legal and ethical questions about consent, the boundaries of personal autonomy, and the very definition of murder. While German law did not explicitly prohibit cannibalism at the time, Moose was ultimately convicted of manslaughter and later, in a retrial, of murder, highlighting the challenges of applying existing laws to such unprecedented cases. The complexities of defining and prosecuting cannibalism are evident in legal systems worldwide. Most jurisdictions lack specific laws against cannibalism, relying instead on existing statutes like murder, desecration of corpses, and improper disposal of human remains. This legal ambiguity often leads to difficulties in prosecuting cases, particularly those involving consensual cannibalism or the consumption of already deceased individuals. The absence of a clear legal framework reflects the rarity of these acts and the societal aversion to even contemplating the consumption of human flesh. Beyond the realm of individual psychopathology, modern cannibalism can also arise from cultural beliefs and practices. The Korowai tribe of Indonesian New Guinea, a remote and isolated group, is one such example. Rumors of cannibalism among the Korowai persist, often linked to their belief in kakua, male witches believed to cause illness and misfortune. The consumption of kakua is seen as a form of spiritual purification, a way to protect the community from malevolent forces. Journalist Paul Raphael, who lived among the Korowai, documented their beliefs and practices, providing a rare glimpse into this isolated culture. However, verifying such reports in remote communities is fraught with challenges, as language barriers, cultural misunderstandings, and the potential for sensationalism can distort the truth. The Korowai's case also raises questions about the role of the noble savage myth in shaping perceptions of cannibalism, as outsiders often project their own fantasies and preconceptions onto these remote communities. A more recent case in South Africa highlights the persistence of cannibalism for purported magical properties. In 2017, several men were arrested after the discovery of human remains in a traditional healer's home. The healer, known as Makanyovu, the corrupt one, allegedly served human flesh to his clients, claiming it possessed magical powers that could bring wealth, power, and protection. This case shocked the local community, revealing the dark underbelly of traditional beliefs and the potential for exploitation and manipulation. Some villagers confessed to knowingly consuming human flesh, while others expressed fear and disbelief. This incident underscores the complex interplay of cultural beliefs, superstition, and desperation that can fuel modern cannibalism. Perhaps one of the most surprising aspects of cannibalism's history is its purported medicinal use in early modern Europe. From the 16th to the 18th centuries, the consumption of human body parts and blood was a surprisingly common practice, believed to hold curative powers. This medicinal cannibalism intersected with beliefs about the mystical properties of the human body, with certain parts believed to hold specific healing powers. Mumia, a powder made from ground mummy remains, was a highly sought-after remedy for various ailments, from bruising to bleeding. The king's drops, a tincture made from distilled human skull, was another popular remedy, believed to be a panacea for a range of illnesses. These practices, while seemingly at odds with modern medical understanding, reflect the prevailing medical beliefs of the time and the intersection of science, superstition, and folklore. The persistence of cannibalism in the modern world raises profound questions about human nature and the tension between cultural relativism and universal moral values. Cultural relativism, the idea that a person's beliefs and practices should be understood based on their own culture, rather than judged against the criteria of another, is often invoked when discussing cannibalism. However, the extreme nature of this act challenges the limits of cultural relativism, forcing us to confront the question of whether certain practices are simply beyond the pale of acceptable human behavior. Anthropologists, tasked with understanding and interpreting human cultures, grapple with this dilemma, seeking to balance cultural sensitivity with a recognition of universal moral principles. Cannibalism, in this context, becomes a litmus test for cultural relativism, forcing us to define the boundaries of acceptable behavior and to confront the uncomfortable truth that even the most unsettling practices can hold meaning and significance within a specific cultural context. The debate over whether cannibalism can ever be considered a socially acceptable practice is ongoing. Some scholars argue that no firm evidence exists to support the notion of socially sanctioned cannibalism, suggesting that all instances, even those embedded within ritual or cultural practices, are ultimately acts of desperation, aggression, or pathology. Others, however, point to the complex and often contradictory evidence from various cultures, arguing that cannibalism, in certain contexts, can hold profound social and spiritual meaning, reflecting a society's unique worldview and its relationship with the human body, death, and the afterlife. This debate highlights the challenges of applying universal moral judgments to culturally specific practices and the ongoing struggle to understand the full spectrum of human behavior, even in its most disturbing manifestations. The whispers of cannibalism, echoing from the deep past and resonating in the present, continue to challenge our understanding of human nature, forcing us to confront the darkest corners of our shared humanity and to question the very boundaries of what it means to be human. Cannibalism, a practice often relegated to the fringes of human comprehension, reveals a surprisingly complex and multifaceted history. From the earliest whispers of prehistoric consumption to modern instances shrouded in disturbing circumstances, the act of humans consuming other humans defies simple categorization. Archaeological evidence suggests that cannibalism has existed across various hominin groups and time periods, challenging our understanding of early human behavior. The motivations behind these acts remain elusive, ranging from nutritional needs and survival to ritualistic practices, displays of dominance, and social control. One key takeaway is the distinction between nutritional and ritualistic cannibalism. While survival cannibalism, like that of the Donner Party or the Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 survivors, highlights the desperate measures humans take under extreme duress, ritualistic cannibalism reveals the diverse ways cultures have incorporated the consumption of human flesh into their spiritual and ceremonial practices. The Four People's tragic experience with Kuru, a fatal prion disease linked to their ritualistic consumption of deceased relatives, underscores the unintended consequences of even the most well-intentioned cultural practices. The psychological and sociological dimensions of cannibalism further complicate the narrative. Acts of dominance and social control, as seen in warfare cannibalism and the Korowai's consumption of alleged witches, reveal the darker aspects of human behavior. Modern instances, often linked to mental illness or purported magical properties, raise legal and ethical questions about consent, personal autonomy, and the boundaries of acceptable behavior. These findings collectively paint a complex and often disturbing picture of human behavior. They challenge our preconceived notions about the nature of our ancestors and force us to confront the darker aspects of our shared humanity. The study of cannibalism provides valuable insights into the interplay of biology, culture, and psychology, offering a unique lens through which to examine the human condition. The research can inform our understanding of violence, social dynamics, and the extreme choices humans make under pressure, potentially leading to more effective interventions in cases of extreme deprivation or social breakdown. Looking forward, continued research could focus on developing more nuanced interpretations of archaeological evidence, further exploring the psychological motivations behind cannibalistic acts, and addressing the ethical and legal challenges posed by modern instances. The study of cannibalism, while challenging, offers a unique opportunity to deepen our understanding of the human experience in all its complexity. What are your thoughts on this unsettling topic? Share your questions and comments below. We encourage you to subscribe for more explorations into the fascinating and sometimes disturbing corners of human history. Don't forget to like this video and suggest topics for future discussions. The pursuit of knowledge, even about the darkest aspects of human nature, is a journey worth taking, one that can broaden our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.